To serve and protect, cashing in on seized drugs, new allegations, tarnishing the badge. 17 News investigates. Breaking news, Kern corruption.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for this special edition of 17 News. I'm Alex Fisher.
I'm Tammy Melchuk. We begin tonight with stunning developments in the ongoing investigation into corruption in local law enforcement. 17 News has learned the Kern County grand jury has indicted at least one former sheriff's deputy on more than a dozen felony charges, and there may be at least one other defendant.
The indictment names former Deputy Logan August, who pleaded guilty to corruption charges in federal court last year, but was sentenced only to probation. District Attorney Lisa Green, still simmering over the light sentences handed down in federal court, has secured grand jury indictments on state charges. Conviction on those charges could mean hard time.
We broke the story of drug cop corruption 2.5 years ago, and we have team coverage again tonight. At the center of our coverage, once again, is 17's Kristen Price, who first reported corruption in the Bakersfield Police Department and then uncovered federal plea agreements in the Sheriff's Department. Kristen?
Well, Tammy, we've learned the Kern County grand jury secretly handed down more than a dozen felony indictments in connection with the law enforcement corruption scandal that has rocked Bakersfield for 2 years. Our sources say the indictments named 32-year-old former sheriff's deputy Logan August and one other person. The indictments are sealed, so it is not known who the second defendant is or the exact charges against August. August and his narcotics squad partner, 36-year-old Derek Penny, were at the heart of federal court allegations against numerous detectives in the Sheriff's Department and Bakersfield Police Department over the last 2 years. August and Penny pleaded guilty in federal court in Fresno last year to felony charges of conspiracy to distribute marijuana. A judge sentenced them to a no-prison probation term. They never spent a day behind bars. The new charges in Kern County Superior Court could result in the kind of prison time many local prosecutors said they believe police corruption deserves. The corruption case came to light in 2016 with the federal charges against then Bakersfield police detectives Patrick Mara and Demasio Diaz. I reached out to District Attorney Lisa Green's office, but she declined to comment. Logan August did not respond to our phone calls as of news time. I'll have more on how the corruption unfolded in just a bit. Tammy.
Kristen, thanks. We spoke briefly today with Kern County Sheriff Donnie Youngblood. He declined to comment on the case until it's officially unsealed, but he warned back in April we hadn't heard the end of this investigation.
The feds did their part, they thought, and walked away. And I can't go any further than that, but we're not done, because I wasn't satisfied that they did a complete investigation. Internally. And well, from then, as a matter of fact, it could be criminal, but I wasn't done, because I wasn't convinced. In fact, I told them, you did half of an investigation, you hung us out to dry, and you walked away. And now they're back, okay, to complete the investigation. I didn't have to do that. And it came from an employee at a lower level who said, there's more to this, there's something not missing, there's a part to this puzzle not missing.
Since being sentenced in federal court in Fresno, Logan August and Derek Penny seemingly tried to go on with their lives and careers outside law enforcement. 17's Olivia LaVoice is here with that part of our coverage. Olivia?
Well, Tammy, the partners and best friends each became entrepreneurs after leaving law enforcement. Both pursued careers in health and wellness, and both seemed passionate about helping others turn their lives around through fitness. Now, Logan August has dedicated much of his life to his gym, Casey CrossFit. August opened the gym in October 2014. In his federal sentencing memorandum last year, he discussed his passion for working with nonprofits and using the gym to raise money for good causes. A Google search indicates the gym has closed, but its business license remains active. It was renewed just this Tuesday. August put his Seven Oaks house on the market 2 months ago as well. It's listed at $430,000. He has been very public with his work until recently. In the last couple months, he deleted his social media, including the once very public YouTube video he posted last year apologizing for his actions. After leaving the sheriff's office in spring 2016, Derek Penny and his family packed up and moved to Idaho. There, Penny followed in August's footsteps, focusing on a career in health and wellness, opening up Pendak Sports and Nutrition, where he sold protein, vitamins, and other nutritional supplements. According to LinkedIn, Penny has owned the business since April 2016. Its website says the business is now permanently closed. Penny and his brother also started a construction business together, LinkedIn says Penny still owns that business. Now, after leaving KCSO, Logan August was hired by the Kern High School District, but his time there was short. After just 3 weeks in February 2016, he resigned the same day he walked into the local FBI office and confessed to his crimes. In studio, I'm Olivia LaVoice, 17 News.
Olivia, thank you. Our Kristen Price first broke the story in May 2017, confirming the corruption ran deeper than authorities initially admitted. She discovered the plea agreements quietly filed in federal court with no announcement, buried among thousands of other cases. Unlike the typical handling of public corruption matters, 3 months later, another bombshell. In a 17 News exclusive, Kristen uncovered $50,000 of cocaine missing from KCO evidence connected to Demasio Diaz. She's been following Kern corruption from the beginning and joins us now with details on how this happened.
Well, this all started in 2011. Demasio Diaz was at the top of his career. He had a new assignment on a drug task force, and production was underway for a Disney film based on his upbringing in McFarland. But the veteran Bakersfield police officer soon found himself on the other side of the law.
From the red carpet
True story.
to the Gray Bar Motel, Demasio Diaz spent the better part of the last 7 years in the spotlight.
You don't go from being the kind of person that I am and that I was to ending up in handcuffs in the courtroom overnight.
The ex-officer now in federal prison for committing the same crimes he was assigned to prevent. Based on his own admissions, Diaz began stealing and selling drugs from the Bakersfield Police Department evidence room in 2011. But he didn't act alone.
I apologize to the citizens of Bakersfield for betraying the trust that they had placed in me.
Patrick Mara was also at the top of his game, awarded Exceptional Officer of the Year by the Kern County Law Enforcement Foundation in June 2012. Just 1 week later, Mara says things changed.
Things snowballed out of control pretty rapidly, and before I knew it, I didn't know what I was doing.
Mara and Diaz, partners on the street and in crime, working together for more than a year, stealing and selling drugs, making thousands of dollars off the books.
Bakersfield stacks up just fine.
February 2015, it all came to a head. 2 weeks after the premiere of McFarland USA, the BPD put Diaz on administrative leave. It happened as a federal grand jury indicted Diaz's informant, Guillermo Magallanes, and 2 other Bakersfield men on drug charges.
When he was caught, he was the one who gave up Diaz. And when Diaz was essentially caught, he gave up his partner, Mara.
9 months later, in November 2015, Diaz was arrested for narcotics trafficking, conspiracy, bribery, and tax charges.
I got myself in a situation where we began to cross the line.
6 months later, Mara agreed to plead guilty to federal drug charges.
Patrick signed this morning a plea agreement accepting responsibility for his conduct in this case.
As federal investigators built the case, they spoke with Derek Penny, a Kern County Sheriff's deputy who was close friends with Mara. Penny encouraged Mara to come clean, but before Mara spoke with investigators, Penny had some admissions of his own.
I made a single bad mistake.
Penny and his partner, Logan August, admitted to using their department-issued keys to access a KCSO evidence facility where they stole marijuana. The crimes of the dishonest deputies and corrupt cops had a connection. Mara helped Penny and August sell the stolen drugs. All 4 men accepted plea deals with minimal sentences for crimes they committed while they were trusted to protect and serve.
The judge saw something, and I'm just appreciative of that because I get a second chance with my children. I get a second chance as a husband and as a community member of Kern County.
August and Penny were sentenced to probation and community service. Both Diaz and Mara are serving 5-year sentences in federal prison. Diaz is scheduled to be released June 2021. Mara is expected to be released May 2020, nearly a year earlier than initially reported. Kristen Price, 17 News.
Kristen, thanks. Well, those 4 lawmen weren't only working with each other, they needed a middleman to help swap all that cash and contraband. They had one in one of the most prominent buildings in downtown Bakersfield. Businessman Noel Carter was indicted last September on suspicion of selling the stolen drugs. Carter is accused of selling more than a pound of meth right out of the Bank of America building downtown. right across from the Kern County Superior Courthouse. The indictment states Carter made $216,000 by using the office he leased in the building as a drop-off point for drugs and money. In June, additional charges were tacked on against Carter. The new indictment says Carter also defrauded business customers who he was leasing office space to by cashing their checks into his personal bank account instead of the company's account. Carter has pleaded not guilty to federal drug and conspiracy charges. If convicted, he faces a maximum term of life in prison and $22 million in fines. He is scheduled to appear in federal court in Fresno on October 1st. A month before Noel Carter was indicted, a 17 News investigation revealed that $50,000 worth of cocaine was missing from a sheriff's department evidence storage facility. When we asked Sheriff Donnie Youngblood about it in August of 2017, his initial response was no comment. But after repeated attempts to get the sheriff on the record, he finally blamed the loss on BPD detective Damasio Diaz, saying it happened while Diaz was working with the department on a reverse sting in 2012. That means officers checked drugs out for a sting, but Sheriff Youngblood alleges Diaz told a deputy he would return the drugs to the property room, but he never did. No charges have ever been filed related to the missing cocaine.
We know the drug conspiracy ring spans half a decade, involving 2 local law enforcement agencies, civilians and unnamed police informants. But as new details trickle out, it continues to become more apparent how much is still unknown about these cases. And as suspicions grow, many ask, why didn't all of this come out sooner? And what else hasn't come out?
God has blessed us.
BPD Detective Damasio Diaz initially implicated his partner, Patrick Mara, and 5 other officers who were placed on leave.
During the course of this investigation, it became clear that Damasio Diaz intentionally manipulated numerous officers.
Then Police Chief Greg Williamson downplayed their involvement.
He gained their trust, and once the officers were out of the picture, in other words, Detective Diaz was in charge of the investigation. Once they left, that is when the corruption began.
Quite frankly, to use the vernacular, I don't buy that.
From the start, Diaz's attorney, David Torres, believes this went further than Diaz and Mara.
This is going to actually expose a substantial amount of police corruption that has been happening here in Kern County, and that is primarily with some of the narcotics units.
In court documents, Diaz outlined allegations narcotics officers routinely falsified reports, lied to supervisors, stole drugs, misappropriated money, dealt with informants off the books, and drank on duty.
We'll look into the additional policy violations that he talked about here, but at the same time, we have to remember what the source is, and I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that this is just a plea for him for some lenient sentence.
After the investigation, Officer Justin Lewis resigned. The other 4 unnamed officers returned to duty.
The 5 officers were not in violation of federal law. However, there may be some policy violations in regards to that.
But the BPD never detailed what those officers did.
There's either right or there's wrong. There is legal or there is illegal.
While investigators acknowledge these corruption cases are connected, they've never explained how the disgraced lawmen began working together. There's also one key confidential informant for the Sheriff's Department who's never been publicly identified, but we do know that Deputies Logan August and Derek Penny gave marijuana to that person who then sold the drugs. Investigators also have never said if that informant is facing any charges.
We also know a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department is on leave pending an internal review of the investigation into the federal drug conspiracy. Sheriff's officials say Bill Starr supervised Logan August and Derek Penny on at least 2 different narcotics task forces. Starr has been on leave since May 2017, 2 weeks after the former deputies pleaded guilty to stealing and selling marijuana. He is not facing any criminal charges, but the internal review is expected to determine what, if any, knowledge Starr had of the drug conspiracy involving Logan August and Derek Penny.
The former officers admit they used their positions for personal gain, but the public has questioned if their authority also helped them avoid harsh punishments. 17's Maddie Jansen has those details.
All 4 men pleaded guilty to charges that carried prison sentences, but they walked away with minimal punishment.
We are back with final results from tonight's 17 interactive feedback poll. We were asking, is no jail time a fair sentence for former sheriff's deputies Logan August and Derek Penny? With more than 600 of you voting tonight, 16% believe it was a fair sentence, while 84% disagree.
13 months ago, Judge Lawrence O'Neill said he planned on sentencing Logan August and Derek Penny to prison.
I was going to be an example today.
But after hearing what he called their sincere apologies, he changed his mind.
It was crazy when he said that. I was as surprised as you were. I truly was.
Instead, August and Penny were each sentenced to 3 years probation. The maximum sentence they could have received was 5 years in prison.
99% of the officers in the sheriff's office are shocked and disgusted at the sentence that these two crooks got.
Meanwhile, BPD detectives Damasio Diaz and Patrick Mara faced life in prison, but the same judge sentenced them to 5 years in federal prison.
We are extremely blessed and happy to announce that we are victorious.
I find no victor in this incident.
Leaders of local law enforcement voicing their displeasure with the sentences.
These individuals have violated that in the worst way, and in doing so, it basically leaves people with suspicion and doubt about their fellow officers who haven't done anything wrong.
U.S. Attorney Brian Delaney prosecuted both cases.
It was a very difficult sentencing. I think a sentence of 5 years is less than what we had expected, but it's still a strong sentence. 5 years in jail for a law enforcement officer that's a serious sentence, though, and it's a long time in jail for someone who once wore a badge.
In many cases, civilians have served longer sentences, leaving many wondering if their badges shielded them. Maddie Jansen, 17 News.
The fallout of these cases is widespread. District Attorney Lisa Green laid out the impact of the scandal on scores of cases investigated by the disgraced lawmen. The district attorney's office says more than 80 convictions were potentially impacted. In 2016, Green said her office sent out 64 letters regarding cases directly involving Damasio Diaz or Patrick Mara. Green said her office would litigate any case where a motion for a new trial or motion to withdraw a plea is filed. Green added 2 misdemeanor prostitution cases involving Diaz were dismissed. A spokesperson for the DA's office said she is not aware of any new hearings or sentence reversals based on the information. Through the Public Records Act, we requested details on the criminal case review of Logan August and Derek Penny. The DA's office sent out notifications regarding 17 convictions, but declined to elaborate on if any were overturned. There are 2 high-profile cases with direct connections to Damasio Diaz and Patrick Mara. The former BPD detectives were named in the wrongful lawsuit death of Jorge Ramirez, who was working as a police informant off the books. Ramirez was shot and killed by BPD officers in the parking lot of the Sheraton Hotel on California Avenue back in September 2013 while leading officers to a fugitive parolee. Then BPD Chief Greg Williamson revealed on 17 News at Sunrise Ramirez was indeed an informant. The city quietly settled earlier this year out of court with the Ramirez family. The settlement specifically ordered the city and Ramirez family to not release details to the press.
It has also been nearly 4 years since Matt Odom was killed in the front yard of his Northwest Bakersfield home. Damasio Diaz was the homicide detective assigned to that case.
Somebody told me if they have a crappy cop on the case, it's hard to figure it out. But if they have a dirty cop, it's even harder because they go to lengths to cover things up.
Police are still investigating the murder. No arrests have been made and no suspects publicly identified. Both departments continue to work toward gaining the public's trust. 17's Lori Lizarraga has details of how they're bouncing back.
The Bakersfield Police Department and Kern County Sheriff's Office are rebuilding their reputations.
When the public learns that police officers who are supposed to be enforcing the law have been violating that very law, particularly under circumstances like these involving huge amounts of harmful, illegal drugs, people's faith in law enforcement is understandably shaken.
Men and women who wear the badge say they're also disappointed and now bear the brunt of the public's resentment.
Anytime a police officer does tarnish the badge, it affects all of us. It affects how the public perceives us and the trust, and it makes us unhappy with the whole criminal justice system.
Both departments have implemented changes, specifically in narcotics units.
We're looking at the processes that we have with our narcotics unit and seizing and booking evident narcotics evidence. I believe we've been working with the DEA for quite some time now on the revision of our policies.
We've made changes in our narcotic unit. There's a time limit you can spend in there now. And we have continued to go back and finish what we think was not a great investigation by the federal government. And we're still looking at that unit to see if we've cleaned it out, we've moved people. This is something that we just can't allow.
Both departments have also increased the number of officers wearing body cameras. They hope the technology will increase transparency. Lori Lizarraga, 17 News.
We've shown you throughout this coverage. We have much more on this story on our website. You can go to kgt.com for various news conferences over the last few years of Kern corruption involving former BPD detectives Damasio Diaz and Patrick Mara and former Kern County Sheriff's deputies Logan August and Derek Penny. We have all those stories for you. Just watch there, as well as archive stories, plus a timeline of all of these events. It's all on our website, kget.com. Well, that is all for this special edition of 17 News. Here's what we're working on for 17 News at 11.
We remember Raymond Gonzalez, the Kern County trailblazer who set new standards in our community while at the forefront of the Chicano movement.
We'll also have a check of your forecast, and 17's Nick James will have your sports highlights.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of 17 News. We'll see you back here at 11.
17 News, your local news leader, continues 24 hours a day on kget.com and our 17 News app. In the spirit of the Golden Empire, 17 News.